All right, everyone, welcome to the. This is going to be so hard to say. The working title podcast live on Live the Dream with our friends at Live the Dream Media.
Yeah. Welcome back.
How are you doing?
Not much to talk about, so let's just wrap it and go home, okay?
So I've of course been covering what occurred with this assassination attempt on the president on Saturday on the Wake Up Tucson. So I think probably most of my folks are kind of like, we're cool. We don't need to go there today. I thought we were going to talk about three things today: baseball, which is right in your alley, right? The crazy ass weather,
which is right in my alley,
and then the Mississippi reading miracle.
Don't know that one.
Wait till I get that. This is back to our reel that we did about reading rates.
Okay.
And I'm gonna bring in our redneck. Not redneck. That's wrong. Yeah. Urbanly challenged brothers and sisters in the great state of Mississippi.
Hey, where are you at back there, boys? Where's our guys?
Oh my! Look at you guys.
Oh yeah, we're here to join you. So if you want to chime in,
and you see what's going on right there. David's freshly back from the state of Washington, upstate on the Canadian border. Scott right behind him has been out on the islands. He was forced to go do a trip to Hawaii with his lovely bride.
He's still in his board shorts.
Yeah, look at him.
See?
And he's back there now because we've got I'm going to let David talk about that a little bit, but a whole new system that we just ran the first hour, and we talked a lot about what had happened over the weekend. So yeah, we probably can move on from that a little bit.
I'm fine with that. I've covered it in the last 9 hours of radio, so I'm okay with
Fatigued,
that.
Fatigued, huh?
It's
a little bit.
It comes back. So look. So now let me ask you: Is now Scotty, when he came back, is he always drinking? Is he only drinking that longboard beer that they say is from Hawaii? Is that all he's doing now? It's like, you got to try this. It's from Hawaii. So
I'm cultured. He said he's cultured. Yes,
I love it. So, Clint, you're a baseball guy.
I love it.
And one of the things I want to talk about with you today is, as you can tell, anytime you and I talk baseball, my reference point ends about 1990.
Bobby D. Bobby D, the Daily Double. It's Harry Curry from Chicago, Wrigley Field.
So, Clint's a Cubs fan, right?
Yes.
Right, and then my wife's a Cubs fan.
Yes,
and so she chose well. Absolutely, it's been a mutual choose well. But so whenever I was a Met fan in those days, right. But I always enjoyed playing the Cubs, and Harry Carey was my guy. How can you not like Harry Carey?
Well, you got to love him. Once he left the Cardinal organization.
Right, correct.
I mean, I grew up listening to Harry on KMOX.
Yeah,
Cardinals.
Well, and of course that was a blowtorch that radio station.
Oh. Well, they still are, but nothing like they were in the 60s. I mean, there's Harry Carey, and that's how I became. I met Harry one time a couple of times actually, but once in Chicago, way back in the day.
Harry in the same
and there's
conversation.
like 4 people. There's only 4 people in the room. It was really cool. That we were hanging.
You want to keep that mic down while you're talking to each other? What kind of show is this?
He was showing me his board shorts again. Sorry.
What is this? The Mountain View Arts Media class? What's going on here?
Yeah, I had an open mic on that one.
But hey, live TV, we talk about it all the time. That's why it's so. I find it so refreshing and so cool that we're in this industry. We get to, this is just live TV. But back to Harry Carey and KMOX. I mean, that was where I grew to love baseball. Was primarily Harry Carey's description of the Cardinals in Old Busch Stadium in mid-60 on through.
But here's my question to you: Why did when I stopped watching baseball? Probably late 90s.
Okay.
Right. I really maybe as I got older, but so why did I like baseball better in the 80s than I would now? Why? There's something different.
Well,
is it lack of characters in all of these things?
You know what? Here's what I do. That's a great question, and I'm glad we're going down this road.
Yeah,
obviously.
Absolutely.
But you know what? Here's what I do think. Just my first reaction to that is, it used to be back in the day, especially before free agency, and I don't have a problem with free agency. By the way,
no,
I don't have a problem. Make as much as you can.
Capitalists.
Yeah, so I don't have a problem. But you had a team. You had that team like forever. It was a team. There was no I in team. Now we have become mercenaries. Now we are. It's analytics.
Right.
So
I'm okay with analytics.
I am too. As a matter of fact, you know a game called Stratomatic.
Absolutely.
That was one of the best sports. Still, if I could figure out a way to get a league started in here in the winter, I'd do it.
I also had the
I'd give away
baseball
big
one where
screen
you took the
TV.
little, I forgot what it was called. It had the little discs, and
Yeah.
you put them in the thing, and you had a spinner.
Yeah.
And then where the spinner ended
Yeah.
up, you got a single, a hit
Yeah.
based on the
I remember
stats
that one.
of that player.
Stratomatic though was. I'm gonna have to buy a new version of that game because it was the analytics were insane.
So what we're saying is that you had a critical mass of players that stayed there for
They
at least
stayed there.
several years.
Yeah.
So you got to build the relationship,
Yeah.
kind of mentally with them. But in the end, I think this is in all sports, maybe most of the sports. There's no personalities
That's part
in
of
sports
it. That's
anymore,
part
right?
of
Where
it.
there's so many. So I'm not a guy who likes to watch golf. Okay, I'd
Yeah.
rather punch
No, yeah.
myself in the face.
Yeah.
I like watching like the British Open when it's a windy, cold day and they
Yeah.
have to struggle. I
Yeah.
kind of enjoy that a little bit.
Yeah.
But all those in those days, you had the Lee Trevinos,
Right.
Chai Chai Rodriguez, as they say on WKRP.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
See there, but that's that time frame.
Right. Right.
That
And
80s
so-
time frame. Yeah, I think that's part. You know what? Another thing is, keep in mind, I'm talking. Fell in love with the game at 6, 7, 8 years old, and I'm listening to it more than watching it because there was only one game on. The
Sure.
game of the week on Saturday. That was it.
Yep.
Really. Until WGN and TBS came on in the probably had to be the late 70s.
Early
because
80s, probably.
I'm trying to
Is
think
what-
of where I was at in college and stuff. Probably or late 70s, early 80s.
Gents.
What?
Yes.
Clint. Hey, somebody chimed in on the Instagram chat about what you guys are talking about. They
Yeah.
said baseball players used to be loyal to teams
Exactly.
and organizations.
Exactly.
Now they chase money, and there is no loyalty or real teams.
There's
thoughts
a
on
lot
that?
of truth to that. You even pre what I'm talking about the old school guys, and in St. Louis because I grew up an hour from St. Louis. The Garajolas, the Berras, all those guys, they played in the streets. Their dads worked together at the factory or as builders. They lived in the same neighborhoods. With these people. Now these guys, again, no offense to somebody having a crib.
I have a
but-
story that's going to support you here. So I was lived in this little town. It was a village of 8,000 people on Long Island, New York, and it was called Williston Park. And we had our little league. Okay, and at the end of the year, you'd have your little league awards dinner.
Yeah.
Well, you know something? Most of those years, 90% of the time, we had an actual New York Yankee or New York Met coach or player.
Yeah.
Was the guest keynote speaker at my Little League Awards dinner.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite New York Mets, you'll know this name, is Mookie Wilson.
Oh yeah,
Right?
Mookie.
And I have a picture of Mookie giving me my piece of acrylic for making the All-Star team or whatever I did that year. That would never happen today that a player would go to a local Little League Awards dinner.
You know what they do now? And again, no offense, none, zero. And Phoenix is a hotbed for retired ball, both current and retired.
I bet.
There's literally thousands of former big leaguers that live in Phoenix. And you know what they do now is they coach their kids travel club or club ball. And that's great. You got your coaching staff is former big leaguers.
Sure.
That's pretty cool. But we're not doing the Little League thing anymore. Matter of fact, Little League, according to, I don't know if you know Javier, what's his last name, David?
Morales?
Morales, yeah. He was discussing his Little League, Sunnyside, and how it has fallen. The numbers weren't there.
Sure.
The kid, you know why? The good kids are just not just the good kids, because a lot of times the kids that play travel ball aren't that good either. But
what I
they're
see
just-
is there's a
they're
lack
just
of
not playing
total
there.
participation in a lot of these youth
and
sports.
it's neighborhoods.
Right.
Think about it. It's not even a neighborhood
Then
anymore.
the smaller group that really wants to play, that's doing club, is very intense.
Oh,
Hey, Clint, another comment came in from Battleborn Coffee Roasters. Great coffee, by the way. I love it. I grab bags when I can from Crema. He says, the guys younger than us still feel the same way about sports. It's not the same, but maybe it's just generational, nostalgic, changed, and now it's not what we remember.
I think I think all those statements are true.
So what happens is you follow your team your dad and mom grew up with.
Right. My kid's never been in Chicago.
It's like being a Republican
But
or a Democrat, mostly because my mom was a Democrat.
My kid's never been in Chicago, but guess who he roots for?
Right.
The Bulls, the Cubs, the Bears, the Blackhawks.
We're going to get deep here. So there's that tribalism of we want to belong to something. Right. So sometimes it's our college, which you should stop doing. And but I see it.
Go Salukis.
You know, I'm a European soccer guy.
Yeah.
Right. And
Gets up at 2:00 in the morning to watch this
sometimes.
stuff.
But what happens is I'm up 3:30 in the morning anyway doing radio. But what happens is you can see it now. That's the most cutthroat capitalism ever.
Yeah.
They don't do trades in European soccer. They sell you and your contract.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I really like your striker. Okay, would you like him?
Yeah.
You need to pay us 75 million pounds, and then you're on the hook for a $20 million a year contract. And they do it all the time.
Yeah.
But for some reason, European soccer fans are nuts over their teams.
Yeah. Oh, riots and hey, let me tell you real quick. Talk about trades, not trades.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to tell you a cool trade story.
Okay.
2008, what used to be TEP,
The ballpark.
the ballpark.
Yes.
I'm sitting in a room upstairs down at TEP, July 31st, 2008. In the room is Jerry Reinsdorf, the owner of the White Sox, Tim Brazard, the CFO, Dan Flood, a grounds guy.
Can we have a sound effect every time Clint does a name
I'm
drop?
dropping names. I'm sitting next to my buddy, my good buddy, Rick Peralt. And
We're just catching up for all of them. Hold on. 2 more. And we're good.
with deputy baseball commissioner Jimmy Lee Solomon.
Oh, Jimmy Lee, of course. Thank you.
And we get a phone call.
Is that a real person?
That's a real person.
He sounds like a blues guitarist from Mississippi.
Yeah, well, he was that would fit his profile. He's deceased now. Rest his soul. Good guy. He was Bud Selig's deputy commissioner in 2008. And we get a phone. He got a phone call. We're sitting at a round table. He gets a phone call. He goes,
Drinking Dom Perignon.
Yeah, and eating Copper Creek cookies.
Oh, thank you.
Somebody said, "Do you take those to those meetings?" I'm like, "Absolutely." Well, Jerry wouldn't eat any of those, would he? He really is careful what he eats. I'm like, "Oh, by the second cookie, he's wiping the crumbs off."
Yeah, I was going to say, in the classic Bulls day, he looked like he ate too many cookies.
Yeah, he was wiping them off. So Jimmy Lee's sitting there. Oh, there's Bud right there. There's Bud. The White Sox had made a trade for what was soon to be a future Hall of Famer. And I was in the room with those 6 or 7 gentlemen when that trade became official because there was money involved.
Okay.
And we're talking about, Bud, and you could hear his voice, okay, I'll tell Jerry. Jerry, the Ken Griffey Jr. trade to the White Sox is official. And I remember looking around the room at all these guys. These guys basically they're baseball guys, and they have been forever. But for 5 minutes, we all became kids with our trading cards because I said, in typical Clint Peak fashion, "Wow, that's pretty cool."
Look at
I'm
you.
in the room when future Hall of Famer Ken Griffey Jr. gets traded. That's pretty neat. And the room kind of broke
Look at
up,
you.
and you know what? It was really cool. That's my trade deadline story. They've moved the trade deadline, so that story won't have the same impact.
I still think that.
But think about that. That's that baseball card mentality of us that grew up in the 60s and 70s that is lacking. The kids have too many other things to do. We don't have near the participation, even though there's a lot of high-end stuff happening. I took David up in March to some of this stuff, and it's insane. The amount of money, time, effort,
I think it's
energy.
also in relation to youth participation. So kids are growing up more and more in these insulated environments.
Yep.
Right. We always talk. I remember reading something about when the 24-hour news cycle really became prominent. Right, and you had these parents raising their kids, and every story about the creeper van and their kidnapped kid or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Now all of a sudden, that used to be a regional story. That's now a national story. Right, and what happens is, as that news cycle, these parents are like, "Oh God, I don't want my kids leaving the house.
Yeah,
they're not allowed to ride the bicycle past the end of the block." And I think what happened was then technology got more seductive.
Yeah.
And the kids are like, "Oh, I'm playing Call of Duty. Get the hell out of here."
Do you see? I'm on an all-star team. I got a guy that looks just like me, and I'm playing baseball. And no, you're not. I mean, I have nothing against those games. By the way, I've never played.
But again,
them.
so you're gonna play the games that your parents played
exactly.
in the end.
Yeah.
Right. I played basketball and baseball because my dad played basketball and baseball.
Yeah. And you rode your bike to the local Little League field?
I didn't play football as a kid because my dad didn't play football as a kid. Now, don't get me wrong. I was a pitcher in baseball. Yeah. My baseball coach was the football coach at high school, and he was on me all the time about playing football.
Come on, let's play.
You know, I was a tall kid. I had a good arm. Blah 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 blah. And I just was never in my DNA. I played baseball and basketball like you would never believe.
I think, though, that based on what Crema said, what you and I are saying, it's generational. And here's another thing.
It was Battleborn Coffee Roasters, by the way. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
What did you say?
I thought he said
Crema.
My bad.
Well, you said Battleborn and you bought it at Crema.
Yeah. I bought it at Crema, right?
You're close.
Yeah, okay.
I just want to shout out those, the
let's get it
businesses
right.
in here
We want
that are watching. That's
Hey,
really
we pride ourselves on being accurate over here at LTD.
We are shameless pluggers.
Which means you got to constantly be monitoring
So
the
my
old guy in the
favorite,
corner.
I don't have very favorite baseball moments, but did you see the drunk girl sing at the home run derby?
I did not.
Oh,
because you know why?
it's so good.
I don't care about that. Isn't that crazy?
I didn't either, but once I got to give her
heard
credit.
about it after the
She
fact.
came on her and said, "Man, I want to apologize. I actually sang on national television
Drunk. Now I'm checking into rehab. I did hear it later, but I didn't hear it live. One of my friends went on, "Whoa, who's a singer?" So I'm checking.
I wish
on,
some of our elected officials would admit they were drunk while they
I
did
was
some
drunk
stuff.
while I did that.
God bless that woman.
You know
Hope
what?
she makes it.
I'm glad. Here's another thing, Chris. I used to watch the All-Star game faithfully. I can remember Pete Rose running over Ray Fosse, 1971. I'd staying up with my neighbor, the old man down the street, Don Edmondson, rest his soul, would always invite me down to watch the All-Star game with him. I remember those games. They were important. You'd score them. You know what? I haven't watched an All-Star game in probably 10 years. And I watch baseball every day.
I'm going to go real deep reference on the
but
baseball.
I could care less about that.
So if there was a Met, like that one Met, before they became decent, right?
Right.
This is like early 80s,
Okay.
right? Before they brought Gary Carter and Keith Hernandez and that crew in, right? And Lee Mazzilli was like our guy.
Yeah.
Right? He was his Goomba, played center field. Yeah. I went to his baseball camp, believe it or not, one summer. But Lee Mazzilli made the All-Star team, I remember, one year. It's like 83-ish, maybe something like that. And we're all excited. And I remember waiting until he came in as a pinch hitter. And I thought I was so excited that my guy was in the All-Star game.
And he was wearing a Mets uniform, too, wasn't he?
Correct. Not that.
See,
what was those weird pajamas they were wearing yesterday?
I love those old pictures when I see them from 1969 or 1974, and they're all wearing their jersey, home or away, depending on who.
If the All-Star, I
hosting
don't know
it.
if they ever done this. Maybe I'm repeating an idea. They should wear for an All-Star game all of their oldest, ugliest unis from the past,
I'd be
vintage.
okay with that.
Right. So that means you got to wear the Astros multicolored bars.
No, you got to wear the Astros 44 Colt 44s.
That one's good, but I want the uglier one.
Okay. No, I'm just talking about the original. The original.
I want their ugliest unis.
Okay.
So I want that.
You want the stripes in. That's more like early 80s.
You are correct, right? Yeah. And so I want that one. I want that White Sox uni. With the white,
basically the prison-looking unis.
That one.
The Black Sox uni.
That was off the charts.
Those guys all ended up out of baseball.
And remember,
they?
I think it was the White Sox that attempted. They actually played with shorts one year. They tried a couple of games with shorts.
I remember Goose Gossage wearing shorts. Yeah. Can you imagine sliding into second? Of course, that's when they slid on their legs.
Wow.
As opposed to the head first dive, which became. Can you imagine sliding into second with short shorts?
Then those ugly Padre uniforms from the '80s were pretty disgusting. I thought that'd be a good one.
They all went with that. Was that a George Costanza thing with the polyester?
No, he wanted all cotton.
All cotton.
George wanted all cotton. Well, Jerry, that was his idea. I wanted all cotton.
Yeah. They had the bobblehead. They had the.
Is that the smartest thing the Yankees ever did in their lives?
They had the bobblehead the other day of George, and you saw I posted that they didn't even give any money to George or to Jason or Seinfeld. They didn't even give any money to the Human Fund. And you got to be a Seinfeld aficionado to probably go back to that. But.
I think it's interesting where I feel like there's less of a drop off in that. I don't know, like NFL. right? Doesn't seem to have that drop off of kind of like it still has its personalities
They
in it.
do a better job
in a way.
marketing themselves, though. I think
Is that what it is?
I think a lot of that's marketing because you know
Because
why?
there's no personalities in the
I
NBA,
used to be. I watch baseball
and
every
there's
day.
zero in the NHL.
But matter of fact, there should be a. Yeah, that's true. There should be a federal law. We have a lot of crazy laws on the books, but here's one for you: that an East Coast game there has to be at least one East Coast game every day. Weekends, we'll
What
move
sport
around.
is this?
This is baseball. That one East Coast game has to start at 1:00 East Coast time, which means we can have baseball from 10 a.m. out here in the West
Right.
until 10 a.m. at night or 11. And there's a lot of those games
for
that
me
don't
Copy
right
that.
now,
10
that
a.m. at
sounds-
night. Copy.
That sounds horrible
10
to me.
p.m. at night.
Having all that.
No,
That's too much
that way I
baseball.
can spread it out. I can do 12 hours. Because for me, it's like a soundtrack.
But the
It's a soundtrack. I've got it back. I
But
got
the
it
lack
on.
of personalities
I think
in the
that's-
end,
I think that's a big part of it.
right? Is I could remember all of these players from other teams that weren't.
You could name their starting lineups.
I could at least name the top 4 or 5 of all these other
Yeah.
teams easy.
Yeah.
Now I couldn't care.
Think about this. Did you have the sporting news? Did you read the sporting
course.
news? My mother knowing I bragged on her a bunch. She knew I loved it. I had a subscription to sporting news. Is there even a sporting news anymore?
I assume there's an online presence.
And you know
but-
what? For
We used to
anybody that
remember
remember
Sport magazine?
Yes.
Sport
Yes.
magazine.
Yes.
I mean, now we're
Sports,
really aging
Sports
ourselves.
Illustrated. And that all became AI. They got in a lot of trouble recently that there was a bunch of reporters on Sports Illustrated that didn't really exist. They built up these fake profiles. So you talk about lack of personalities. It was not only the players, it was the people off the field as well were colorful.
You'll get a laugh out of this. This is an AI story because we've had discussions about AI in the past, right? So a buddy of mine works in a aspect of the construction business.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I have a LinkedIn account. It's true. I check it about every 5 weeks.
Okay.
by accident sometimes. Okay. And what happened was I saw that he had one of his articles like in a technical journal about their equipment for his company. So I'm on the phone in the car. He calls me up, and him and his girlfriend are in the car together. And I said, "Oh, hey, congratulations on that thing going in there, right?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, blah blah blah." And then I don't know why I go, "How much of that was AI?"
Yeah.
And he goes, "It was about 90%."
Yeah.
Right? And his girlfriend in the car goes, "What the hell?"
Yeah.
Hey, guys, somebody wrote on the comments, Sport had the best swimsuit edition.
So I guess the question would be,
Yeah.
I said, oh, is that a fact? I'm waiting on the response, but I just want to let you know.
I think if now this is, we're having this is the best. I think they were in those days. They went a little slinkier on the bikinis in sport.
Actually, they drove, if I remember correctly, being a younger man at that time, they're the ones that kind of pushed Sports Illustrated into the slinkier.
Well, it was like the arms race of how much
How slinky
how
can
much
we get?
skin can we show.
Yeah.
He said, hell yeah, when you were 14.
Someone brought up the Olivia Newton-John physical video on the show this morning, which I said got many a 14-year-old
Yeah.
boy through through the evening. through the evening. Love you, OJN.
Yeah. But
Rest in
remember,
peace, my friend.
remember, you could only watch that once. You had to wait for it to come back the next hour. They did play it every hour, if I remember correctly. But
I mean,
you couldn't rewind this sucker.
We're
unless
just
you-
we're just riffing now as usual on the Working Title radio podcast show here. So I read a book about the history of MTV,
okay.
and what happened was they made the commitment of 24-hour music television. So what happened was
What year was that? If you-
82, 83.
Okay.
Right? Started with My
Okay.
Boys from the
Yeah,
Bugle. Video
yeah.
Killed the Radio Star
Yeah.
was the first video. Right? But what happened was, so I remember they had all these different little mini interviews as part of this. So Rod Stewart had some crap album that he came out with in 82. There's not one song you would remember from. This is not Young Turks and even that stuff. It's like before that. Right? It's just crap Rod Stewart album. But what happened was his record company said, we got to take advantage of this. So they took him to some place in England or Scotland, wherever he was living, and he filmed 5 crappy videos in 24 hours.
Yeah.
and just fed it to MTV. And they
Yeah.
played the crap out of it because they needed to fill
Yeah.
24 hours. That's why,
And now I know it's on again. Used to in your 20s, the MTV was. I was in my 20s. I don't remember when it again 82 whatever it came out. You had MTV on quite a bit. It was kind of playing in the background.
sure. So what I do now,
I know it's on, but there's no music on MTV.
so there's VH1 Classic on cable, right, or whatever. I have a YouTube TV.
Okay.
So I have a DVR'd for their 80s
Okay.
rewind. And so literally me and the missus can sit there, get on the big TV through the speakers, and we'll just sit there and I can fast forward through the commercials.
I guess
and
you don't need it when you got YouTube.
You can watch it on YouTube, of course, but
I go. Dire Straits was always kind of my favorite from the YouTube era.
there's nothing wrong with that.
And I throw that on every now and then.
So in the end, let's wrap up sports in a second. We have, and then I want to get to our next thing. We're gonna go to the Mississippi Miracle after this.
Okay.
All right.
Let's do some reading and writing.
We are. So the whole thing was sports, but baseball to me is something where you're still into it. I'm not into it anymore. Is the idea that a lot of these sports are suffering from just the way kids are brought up.
I think that's it.
Lack of personality. Right. Maybe they don't.
Both on and off the field.
Oh yeah.
Both on and off. There was a lot of characters off the field. The reporters, the writers. Again, I couldn't really name you anybody.
I think the other thing
than
too
my
is,
guys.
especially, and we can be very sensitive to this living in Arizona, right? Is the Diamondbacks started 20 years ago?
They started in '98.
Right. Okay. So 26 years
26
ago.
years.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
There are some people that are, quote, a Diamondback fan. Right.
Yeah, '98.
But because everyone's from someplace else when
Yeah.
you move to Phoenix,
Yeah.
that's your team.
Hey, you want to see now they won last year. They won
That's
the
true.
World Series. I watched Game 5 when the Rangers.
It's the most baseball. I was in Flagstaff that week just doing the fall
My
thing.
sister said we're going. We went Game 5.
It's the most baseball I've watched of Diamondbacks.
But
since
if you want to see
Gonzo.
the place packed, and that's sad because they've had some pretty good teams over the years. The Diamondbacks don't draw. The out of towners draw. You want a full house? Go when the Cubs are there. Go when the White Sox are there, or the Yankees are there.
Yep.
Go when the Red Sox are there. Go when the Dodgers are there. The place will be packed. But it won't be packed with Diamondback fans. It'd be packed with fans of those other teams. And that makes total sense because, again, a 26-year franchise can't compete with 100 and, Wrigley Field's 110 years old this year. I didn't compete with that.
Yeah. Again, I love sports. I've become I'm a soccer guy. That's my number one sport. Soccer and then college football.
You mentioned football, and I'm more of a college guy now, especially football and basketball, because again, the football it just got so boring. Professional football, it has nothing to do with the politics. It's just there's just not much happening. There's a lot of downtime. There's a lot of in between time. People talk about baseball being boring.
Yeah.
Pro football is pretty boring. For me, there's a lot. Sunday was made up of we're going to watch wall to wall in NFL, and I know it's because I'm busy now and I don't have that amount of time on Sundays. But when I do try to tune it in, and I can't ever get the Bears out here unless I go to a club somewhere, and they're not that good anyway.
You and McCluskey can go cry at the station together on a Sunday.
Well, and my kid, that Williams guy with the So anyway.
All right, so let's switch to the Mississippi Miracle.
Let's do it.
So when we first started doing some podcasting and living the dream, before we did the official working title podcast show we have here, we were talking about literacy. And I asked you the sucker question,
and
which got a lot of play on the reels. Which was I asked you what the reading comprehension of a whole school district here in Tucson, TUSD was.
And I'm it was bad.
It's not your fault, man.
Yeah,
it's not your fault.
Well, I can read.
I think I said what percentage of the kids are reading at level.
And you did cherry pick a district that I didn't know much about,
right?
So.
But
I now know the answer,
right? So what happened was
we're in the teens.
A guy named Aaron Gifford. He's a journalist. He works for the it's come back to me now. Epic Times. Okay. And that's an online subscription kind of thing. It definitely leans a little more conservative.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it, but I don't think
he
I've
did
read
some
much.
hardcore work on the great state of Mississippi. Okay. And so now I'm going to bring it back into your wheelhouse of Marana school boards.
Yeah.
So Tom Carlson, we know Tom, he's a school board member. He comes up to me, and he's part of our Wake Up Tucson. He listens to the show. He's been on the show, and he says to me, he's like, "Hey, we made a really big change in Marana." And I said, "Well, what was that?" He goes, "As a school board, we admitted publicly that we've been teaching reading wrong, incorrectly, over the last." over the last so many years, which was a huge admission.
Now you're talking about when you had him on the show,
Yes,
a year ago.
Yep.
If I'm not mistaken, according to Mr. Carlson,
Yep.
they hadn't checked the reading proficiency since 2002.
Yeah, it was just wild, right?
And that was in 2023 when that came about.
And again, we talk about why are citizens so interesting / stupid sometimes. A lot of them are illiterate, right? And in this day and age, again, where information is as free as and available as ever, it's a total sin that you can't read, right? So what happened was they admitted this and they redirected funds. They hired a director of literacy, Jill Cordova. She's been on my radio show, and we should have
Wake Up Tucson.
We should have her here on
Let's
this show
do it.
one day.
Invite her.
Especially because you guys are so Marana-centric, as you should be.
Invite her.
So what happened was 10 years ago, the great state of Mississippi, the Magnolia State, all right, they made this admission 10 years ago, and they changed the way they started. They made this realization 10 years ago.
So 2014?
Yes.
Okay.
Now what
So I
happened
can do
was,
math, too.
I know you can count those cookies. Why is it 14 in a baker's? No, anyway. So
Yeah. Well, I say it is in our place because 13's an unlucky number.
so what happened was they made this decision. We're going to go back to phonics.
Yep.
Right now, I'm going to explain this to you a little bit. But what happened was, so they're at a point and also on funding of education, because Arizona is always in the bottom 5 of funding per pupil. Now, it never takes cost of living in when people want to crap on Arizona, right? Because of course it's a lot more expensive to do something in New York, Boston, or Washington D.C. than it would be in Arizona.
Okay. I'm gonna throw a number at you real quick.
Hit me, go.
And these are rounded.
Yep.
And they're maybe a year or so ago, but Arizona is always like at the bottom, and there's 51 in the ranking because we use Washington, D.C. as part of this.
Sure.
So Arizona's always 48th, 49th, 50, whatever.
This is per pupil funding.
Just rating. Just as
rating.
far overall rating in schools. And give or take, it's $14,000 to $15,000 per student, okay?
Right.
Those are the numbers. You can verify how close I am to being totally accurate. Washington, D.C. is always at the bottom of the list, 48th, 49th, 50th, and they're doing well over 30.
Yes.
So I put the argument always out. Money is important. Anybody that would disagree with that obviously doesn't understand finances and the way things work. But it's not the most important thing.
Correct.
The commitment to getting it right is more important than how much money we actually have. So if we're both at the bottom, and again, cost of living, we got to factor that all in, but we're more than 2 to 1, and we're both at the bottom, kind of verifies to me that money is in the list, but not the top of the list of being able to produce children that can read, write, and do math.
Amen. So the state of Mississippi, which has always been in the bottom of that bottom 5.
I'm excited to hear what you got. I have no clue.
So originally, Aaron wrote this, and because Epic Times is a prescription. I'm good today. Be talk good. Subscription only. If you don't have a subscription, you could go to my blog, which is called DeSimoneHQ.com, and hit the blog. And I've took some good chunks of it and put it out there so you can read it. Okay. Now, here's the thing. So what they did is they said they changed. They said they called it a miracle, and this is from their director, their literacy director for the entire state. Okay. Trust me, we do not have one in Arizona that's a literacy director. She called it a marathon because for 10 years they were doing it. So the change occurred when the State Department of Education switched from what they call balanced literacy to the science of reading approach. She said that the Mississippi funds the initiative at $15 million a year. Okay? Now, that's
not really that much money, really, is
again,
it?
back to your commitment, right? And having enough funds. That's to augment the funds that they're getting on what they're supposed to be doing. So what they did was that when they talk about the balanced literacy, This is what they would do, what they call sight words instead of phonics. Remember, Hooked on Phonics was all over the place? Yeah. And some of these teachers, not teachers, but even, that's old-fashioned. That's the way they should have done it.
Yeah.
So what happened was they made the commitment to go to back to this science of literacy with phonics in the state of Mississippi. Now, here's a number that's going to blow your mind. So what I'm going to give you some local reading right now.
You got me set up for this because I'm really curious about this.
So here we go. So this is third grade reading. So for all you folks out there who just need to understand this, is that if a kid is not at reading level at third grade, they will struggle the rest of their life.
Yeah.
Right? Literally, I don't know if this is true. I've read various things that the people that build prisons look at the third grade reading rate to see how
Soto, our mutual friend, has sat right here and said that.
Okay.
And given pretty compelling statistics about that being accurate.
Correct. So third grade reading is massively huge because if it's not happening, they are going to struggle the rest of their academic life. All right. So right now, I was looking at the state of Arizona assessment scores for a variety of school districts to see where we're at third grade reading. Okay? This is third grade for just the school district. Okay. All right. Then I'll get to the Mississippi people. Okay.
So this is a district or
this is I'm going to give you each district.
Okay.
And give you what percentage of their kids are reading at level. Okay. Tucson Unified School District is 29% at third grade. So at that point, you're saying the 70% of those kids, you're going to struggle the rest of your life. Thank you, sir. Sunnyside, which is more south, a little more south side, is 20%. Okay? Now, Flowing Wells. See, Flowing Wells, I'm not saying they're killing it overall, but they always do better than those two, even though if you look at their income demographic in Flowing Wells, it's horrible. Right, because that's always the thing that you hear from. Oh, they're from broken families and poor. They don't know. They can't understand it because they have all these other things. Well, I'm going to tell you something. Flowing Wells is at 37%, which is still better than the other two, even though their income demographics in the toilet in Flowing Wells. Wow, look at that. All right, Amphi is 42%. Right. And Marana School District is 47 or so.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, they used to be worse. They're getting better because they made the change.
Yeah.
All right. Now, Clint, here's the sucker question for you, like I did to you last time. What percentage of kids this is the entire state, third graders
in Mississippi
are reading at level?
It's got to be bigger than that, or we wouldn't be calling it a miracle in Mississippi.
Clint, you're on the Budweiser hot seat, as I say.
Optimistic and kind of go with the number, if I remember correctly, that I kind of threw out the last time. I'm going to say it's about 2/3.
All right, David Samarano, what do you think? Where do you think?
And I have no idea. I'm guessing, of course.
The state of Mississippi, third graders reading at level. What percentage?
55%.
How about longboard shorts there, Mr. Scott Robb? What do you think, Scotty?
I'm going 40.
All right.
40.
I'm going to adjust mine.
Okay.
I think it's more than 2/3.
You do?
We wouldn't be calling this. We wouldn't be calling this.
Put a number to it, Peak. It's brutal back there.
More than 2/3. I'm going to say 70%.
The number is 85%.
Yeah! Way to go, Mississippi!
Wow, that's
Are
incredible.
you kidding me? 85% on $15 million a year. What were they before? Do we know?
Oh, they were in the bottoms. 10 years ago, they were in the bottom.
So they were 20s?
Oh, yeah, probably. I bet they were probably in the 30, 40s. So 85% of kids in the great state of Mississippi is reading at level at third grade. That is a true miracle.
So I'm going to push back on something I heard in that broadcast that you did.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Carlson didn't say this, but one of the other guests did.
What's that?
And I spit my coffee into my cup as I was driving
so
in.
we had
work
Jill, and then I forgot the nice lady.
And
who's
I don't
the
mean to.
assistant
I don't mean to
superintendent.
jump on him, but I spit my coffee back into my cup on La Cholla, coming down La Cholla when my wife and I were listening to that particular episode on the way in, and I heard someone say, "You know, teaching reading is really tough. It's really hard." And you know what? I spit literally. I'm like, yeah, it's. No, actually, it's not. You just got to be committed to it, and you got to do it again and again and again. That's what makes it tough. Is we got to be consistently teaching it, rather than just go, "Hey, we got a problem."
So here's
Let's
the
see
other
what
thing.
gets-
Here in Pima County, and this is something, when I announced this yesterday on Wake Up, our good friend Ted Maxwell, who's part of Southern Arizona Leadership, the head of it, was sitting there because he was doing the show after me. And they went all in on the Pima County taxpayer paying for preschool. Right. And they said, because if the kid has preschool, because their parents can't afford it, then they'll be a better student. But they always ignore the fact that whenever they get to these crappy schools,
Yeah.
whatever advantage they had in preschool gets obliterated
Yeah.
by going to these schools, right? So what's great about the Mississippi Miracle is there's no government-paid preschool as part of the miracle, right?
So we just pick it up at
You got to get
kindergarten,
them young,
basically.
right? The other thing I think Flowing Wells is a wonderful, they do something that's really good at Flowing Wells, is they get the parents involved right away.
Yeah.
Right? In kindergarten. And you have to, if you're not engaging your parents early with this kid's education, then they're just going to, and they look at you as state paid babysitting,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you're not getting that help from mom and dad.
Yeah.
Right. So mom and dad are always, but I always tell these people, well, they come from a broken home. Mom and dad are working, blah, blah. I go, just assume all the kids are orphans.
I've heard you say that.
Right. Just assume they're orphans.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
You're going to teach the love of reading very early.
Yeah.
Right. And again, once you get them to third grade and they're reading at level, they will excel.
Yeah.
Right. The love of reading by third grade and just reading at level, and they will have an advantage over everybody.
You know, I've always loved to read, and I'm sure that was my parents. And my mother realized that early and always made sure I had, like I mentioned, all the magazines, all the newspapers. My mother's the one that turned me on to The Godfather in 1972. It had the word God in it, and she brought this thing home called The Godfather, and a 12-year-old seventh grader read this.
Wow.
And that,
There's
that
some
was
naughty parts in that book, too.
page 28 was where they started.
Lucy Mancini.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to it quick.
There's about 5 of you who got that.
Yeah.
That was Clint's version of the
Yeah.
Olivia Newton-John physical.
Yes. Yes. And you know,
physical
I've
video.
thought about that over the years. That was a divine providence of bringing that into my world. That there was another world outside of Opdyke, Illinois, where I grew up, population
That's
120,
true.
that didn't exist in
Speaking
the world that I
of
could
thinking of
speak of.
urbanly challenged, Updike, Illinois. So one of the things that we'll always hear, and then we can wrap this up and we can everyone can get on their way. You'll hear one of the most overused phrases from people in the private and public sector leadership world. Workforce development. How many times have you heard the word workforce, the phrase?
Yeah.
2,356. No, I'm not kidding.
This week.
I know I'm going to walk out of here today and hear it another 10 times. Then I'm going to see it on. I'm going to see it on LinkedIn another 50 times.
Yeah.
True.
After somebody's so humbled about some accomplishment they made.
Let me. I've talked about this several times. You guys have all heard me say this, but let me share a real quick story about this. And this is why
Are you going to drop any cool
important.
names on this story?
No cool name. Opdyke, Illinois. Okay, Opdyke, Illinois had a population of about 120. I remember at one point they were taking pictures of all the little towns in that area, and they said we would have taken a picture of Opdyke except a truck was parked in the way. Okay,
Thank you.
It's that small. You know how many people showed up at the PTA meeting?
75.
120.
Well, that's not bad.
Everybody showed up. It was more of almost a social thing.
Sure.
My kids flash forward 30 whatever years. My kids 30 some years. My kids are in, I won't name the name, but they're out there by where they built the stadium, a new development. We got 900 kids in the school.
Yes.
Okay. By the way, there was about 120 kids in that school, so it might have been a little more than that in Opdyke. But 900 kids in the school. I'd say to my wife, Hayden had gone to a charter school prior to that, but we better get there early. 900 kids? I don't even know where they're going to put everybody.
Was there
At
12
this
people
PT
there?
There was like 7. Tammy and I were 2 of the 7, a couple of teachers, a PTA member. And right then we looked at each other and went, we got to move. That's what actually spurred the move to Tucson and Amphi School District because we a thing called goodschools.net, I believe, at the time.
Wow.
I don't know if it exists. And we started really doing our homework and research. And Amphi and Marana had, at that point, this was 2000. Actually, it started about 2000, but 2000 we got here. But you think about the difference there.
Right.
You got Updike, everybody showing it. Grandmas, grandpas, cousins, people that have left school, people, that have graduated. They're all in the room. That's not a bad thing, whether we're accomplishing anything or not.
Different world and a different time.
And we got 900 students here, and there's I'm not exaggerating when I say there was 7 or 8 people in that room.
So I want to get back to the workforce development phrase. It's just this catch-all phrase.
Yeah.
That says this is how we're making life better economically for your area, even though we don't really know how to do it. Okay, so when I hear anyone from a Chamber of Commerce or Southern Arizona Leadership or Sun Corridor,
boop, boop, boop.
or any of these things talk about workforce development, they're really telling you that Tucson, Pima County has a horrible place to own a business. Mm-hmm. Right? We have illiterate children.
Yeah.
Right. And so I love what JTED does, right? They're doing that vocational training thing, right? I love that. But in the end, I can't crank out. I just gave you the 71% of third graders at TUSD aren't reading at level. Well, you know something? Even in the vocational world, you have to read stuff.
That's right.
Right? I like my technician, boy or girl, to read a manual on how to install correctly.
Right.
Right? And so so my challenge to all of these chambers and elected leaders and school board is you need to do the Mississippi Miracle over the next 10 years if this region is going to have any shot.
How do we do that, Chris? I mean, other than us just shouting it from these microphones here, and I've been thinking as we talked about this, I'm looking in that room in there at Scott and David. I can see them right there on the board. I think I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to challenge those gentlemen in there. I think we have to really be the guys that take the media company that takes a lead on this and says, guys, we are not going to accept this any longer.
Because when this thing grows, this LTD grows,
are you guys with me?
Grows into a giant thing like a big giant company, and we need to hire people, right? We need to hire people. You guys need to hire people that can read.
I'm serious.
Hold on. I thought everywhere was hiring people on their sexual.
Oh,
I have a DEI policy right here on the.
Yeah.
It's right here.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's your preferred pronouns right now, David?
Absent.
Wow. Wow. You mean the pronouns?
Hey, I'm serious. I am very serious. I've been sitting here, especially the baseball thing. That was fun. I love that. I could talk to you all day about that, and we will more. But as we've been talking about this, it's just in my mind. It's fermenting. You know what? I am not waiting for anybody else to take the charge on this.
So what you're going to have to do
it ourselves.
we have to identify.
We got to have a plan.
So the plan, if I'm going to give you a plan right now off the top of my skull, right, is you identify your school districts, right, and you have to go find a majority, whatever that is, three or four people from each of those who are willing to get into this discussion.
Okay, if you're a school board member right now.
Hey, me chime in real quick. Before you guys do
yes,
that.
sir.
Hey, Chris, with this new system, we can get people in here remotely from their phones and computers on video.
Oh.
So just to let you know, so if next time you come in here, if you have some guests that wants to chime in on that, we can just send them a link and they can pop right in.
Oh, I love
4K.
that.
Yeah.
4K, baby.
Whoa. We're not 4K yet there, dog.
Well, South Korea is.
3.5K. No, I love that. And so basically, so here's your school boards. Marana Amphi, TUSD, right? Flowing Wells.
Well, there's 28 of them
Sunnyside.
total in there.
Yeah, but I'm just talking about the big ones right now, right? Tanque Verde School District's a small one, right? But you're talking several school districts. So in the end, you're going to have to convince those school districts,
Okay.
right?
30 people.
At
40
least,
people.
and you just got to get 60% of them to agree with
This
you.
shouldn't even be hard to convince people to. We're teaching kids to read.
Ah.
Hey, remember when I haven't seen these commercials forever? I don't watch much regular TV, by the way. But reading is fundamental was a regular.
Ed Asner.
Yes. It was just constant. Reading is fundamental. Read to your kids, and I think it starts even. We got to dig deeper. Yes, we need the school systems to buy into this, which they should. We need to get parents to read to their. I see David and Alex with their young. They got 2 young kids. The books in their world, they don't travel without a book anywhere.
Sure.
They probably go to the grocery store. I haven't seen them at the grocery store, but there's probably a book involved in the travel. Right? You got to teach kids the love of this.
I was at Target in the OV, and this lady was walking around with her daughter, and her daughter was 8. And you could tell the daughter really didn't want to go to Target, but as she was walking around, she was holding holding onto her mom's shirt and reading a book at the same time. And I said, "Your child gives me hope for the future." I told her.
Here's a star.
So people always say, "Hey, smartass! You're always telling us how much the place sucks."
Yeah.
And trust me, for 15 years, I've been offering suggestions on how to make it better. Right. So now I'm down to low hanging fruit, which is this is why I invented the America's Best Mexican Food thing with Visit Tucson.
Yeah.
Because that's low hanging fruit. Because we are.
Yeah.
Right. No one does it better. Right. Like I said, one of my favorite Babylon Bee headlines from about maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago was Davenport, Iowa opens up 4th crappy Mexican restaurant concept this year.
Hey, that's the one thing Mount Vernon did not have was good
I was
Mexican
in Washington and the Mexican food just was not that. I mean, it's not. I feel like the further north you go,
It's
all bad.
It's rough.
Hey, you know what? Even I lived in Phoenix for a number of years now. There may have been some I didn't get to.
I don't get are they putting sugar in the salsa? I don't get that. Am I the only one that ever notices that? Like I go up and I'm like, did y'all put sugar in here?
You guys could shout out where we went yesterday. My bride and these two fine gentlemen went up the street and they had some awesome little street tacos, $1.99 each.
Where was this?
Taco Gyro.
Right up.
Okay.
They were good.
So
and a fairly big portion for $2. I mean, we all got more than one. But
what was that? So 2 things. That's how we're going to. If Tucson, this region wants to get better, just concentrate on. Just do that reading thing first.
Yeah. We don't. Yeah.
Forget all the other things. If anyone says the phrase workforce development, you automatically discount them as ignorant.
Yeah.
All right. Or as Michael Jackson says in South Park, you ignorant. Okay. So we're going to do that.
How about I just ask them to explain what that means? What is that? Workforce development. What does that mean to you,
So
sir?
the question anyone that's down there in the city of Tucson, Pima County, I ask them one question. But David, get ready with your crickets. All right. This is the question I ask them: is do you think Tucson is a city on the rise? The region's a region on the rise, and if you do, show your work.
Yeah.
That's what I get.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to end off with this reading thing. The Mississippi Miracle is the plan. And what happened
85% people.
The old line state, Maryland, is now adopting the Mississippi model.
Beautiful.
All right. Now, let's end off with, so I love to cook. Wow. Love to cook.
Unnecessary censorship.
Yep. Sorry, it's the last segment. It's coming in. Sorry, guys.
That's okay. Anyway, I get Cook's Country magazine, which is put on by the America's Test Kitchen kids, right? And Tacos Opson, which is here on Thornydale, right near us. They have the original ones down on South 12th on the cover of Cook's magazine with their tacos. So good job.
Hey, one thing real quick. That's why
I'm getting beeped off here.
Well, there's
usually
a
they
reason.
beep for my bad language.
Hey, that's why we have down on Marana. Even though you and I sleep in Oro Valley,
that beep is great.
We doubled down on Marana because it's the last standing unique for sort of sanity here in southern Arizona.
This is like the Oscars
region.
where they play off with music. Dave's playing us off with beeps.
Yeah.
What an SOB.
Well, let me give him something to talk about. Get ready, David.
There's 20 seconds. Sorry.
Get ready. Let's go.
All right. Thank you for joining us on the Working Title podcast with my good friend Clint Peak and Dave and Rob and the. This keeps beeping on me. Go to hell with your beep.
There's
Everyone
David,
have a great day.
Morano, Scott, Rob. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Peace
Thanks
and
for
love.
listening. Yeah, be nice to each other.
No workforce development.
Have you ever thought that maybe you would make a good podcast host? We are currently recruiting talented folks to expand our broadcasting ability with a variety of different shows. If you think you have the talent, shoot us an email at contact@ltdmedia.net for more information.
There is a lot of digital marketing and digital advertising agencies throughout the U.S. I see a new one pop up every day. But we stand out because of our community impact, our client relationships, delivering and doing what we say. That's a key thing, right? A lot of places will tell you, hey, we're going to do this. They don't communicate to you. We're in communication with you. You're going to always get that real small business feel from us. You're going to have ways to contact us, ask us questions, right? Because we want you to do better, but we want to be better every day as well. And we're always innovating. We're always coming up with new ideas, new ways to win, applying for new platforms, and even creating some of our own platforms is some of the stuff we have going forward. So I would say that's what sets us apart.